I find mental health to be a very challenging topic to talk about, given the intangible nature of it, but a very much needed topic to discuss. I believe it is in everyone's best interest to gain some type of fundamental understanding of what could possibly be happening to the fabric of society. Mental health is consistently referenced in our public discourse after a school shooting or any other mass shooting. When talking about gun legislation, when talking about the impacts of social media, and even when discussing a person's workload on the job or jobs they may be juggling. And the list goes on. One thing to note here, we have limited control over our thoughts. Key word being limited. So if we have limited control, what's at risk if we fail to properly control our thoughts? No surprise, mental health is at risk. To be clear, I'm saying at risk and not guaranteed. This is a simple representation to show a relationship between life's mental stimulants and how that can impact mental health. The arbitrary bans for mental health are indicating that there is a healthy amount of mental stimulants that automatically come with just being alive. But we all have the risk of being overstimulated, where the scale tips toward an unhealthy mental state. Now, we all are different, so our baseline starting points will be different. For example, some people unfortunately come into the world with a mental illness. Here are some examples of mental illnesses that can either be produced, exacerbated, and or compounded by not successfully controlling our thoughts or helping others under our care control their thoughts. For me, two stand out from both personal experience with the illness at various points in my life and from my knowledge of others dealing with an illness at various points in their life: anxiety and depression. I imagine most people have a good understanding of depression. But if you need a better understanding of anxiety, I heard one on a Netflix documentary that stayed with me. It was described as the free falling of your thoughts with no landing in sight. If you've ever been on a roller coaster or any other ride where you get that free falling feeling, this is what anxiety feels like. You can be relaxing on the couch and your thoughts take you on a ride to where you do not know how to get off the ride, leaving you in a constant state of free fall where your heart is consistently racing. So as you already know, mental health is some serious stuff. Putting mental stimulants under a microscope. If I were to take a stab at assessing the mental pressure on a child, this is what comes to mind given 21st century stimulants. The child may likely be concerned with food and shelter, their personal safety, their relationships with family and friends, their own self-esteem, any social media they are exposed to, and maybe some spontaneous life-changing events such as a new sibling, marriage or divorce of parents, moving, etc. If I switch to a teen, stimulants would typically increase, or in other words, mental pressure rises. As a child grows, so does their responsibility to learn how to be independent. As an adult, my assessment shows an attempt to stay connected to many aspects of life in as balanced of a way as possible to have a smooth life with minimal drastic surprises. And as a senior, I would imagine the primary stimulants being the first three in the list. In an ideal world, a senior has put in their work and has retired to mainly focus on spending time with family and friends at whatever frequency they see fit. There is no rhyme or reason to this assessment. It's a quick and dirty way to chart peaks and valleys subjectively to drive conversation. So if you're having a hard time finding the words to explain any mental challenges to someone else, please feel free to use these mental models and edit as appropriate for the communication you're trying to get across. And this is in no way an exhaustive list of mental stimulants in the world. There are many, many more. In this picture, I'm giving social media a special spotlight. This picture represents a healthy dose of continuous mental stimulants, or a healthy amount of flow from the various stimulants in which the brain can make sense of the information it is being presented with. Successfully regulating the feed rate of social media is key. Managing mental health is heavily related to paying attention to the type and amount of information entering the mind. Social media is an endless pit of stuff, good, bad, and ugly, with the power to consume all of your attention for an extended period of time routinely. This next picture is an example of what starts to happen to the mind when the regulator starts to break down. The wrong type of information starts getting through, and the amount begins to pressure the mind unfavorably. Too much social media can corrupt how the mind processes other stimulants. Basically, the overflow of information disrupts various belief systems and brings on a state of confusion. Too much information not being processed successfully by the mind. Signs of mental illness can start to present themselves: anxiety, depression, mood swings, etc. And finally, when the regulator becomes non existent, social media has the ability to corrupt everything, giving an uncontrolled flow of information that includes more and more of the wrong type of information entering the mind. Everything in moderation. Too much food leads to unwanted weight gain. Too much sugar leads to cavities and other chronic illnesses. Even too much water can make you ill. Too much of almost anything can result in discomfort or an illness of some kind. Mental discomfort or illnesses are the indicators to diagnose a potential problem with the information uploaded to the mind. So please be aware. Although much reference was directed towards social media is not the enemy. And although we can't control our thoughts, we can regulate the amount and type of information our minds are swimming in. Mental health is becoming more and more of a serious problem in our society. Trying to find ways to keep our mental state healthy seems to be elusive given the intangible nature of how the mind works. There won't be a one-size-fits-all solution, but simply having the awareness of some key factors that could lead to an unhealthy mental state is a step in the right direction. I hope we keep the conversation going as a society, because mental burnout can manifest itself in many different ways where people are not getting the right support. Be sure to check in with those around you from time to time. We all need that at a minimum.